to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin, and joining me today is no one. Justin Hausman's on vacation with his family, and I am handling headlines duty solo this week. So today I'm going to give you my final take on the summer trade show season, as well as roll through a few headlines all on my own. Although producer Dave is with me too. We have our trusty producer is in the studio.
Greetings.
There he is. Before we get to that, let's do a few housekeeping items. We need you, if you would please, just go and follow The Rock Fight wherever you're listening, on whatever podcast app you're listening to us on. That 5-star rating really helps us out. And if you're an Apple Podcast listener, please leave us a written review. We're going to, from now until, I guess, eternity, we're going to be giving out stickers to anybody who leaves a written review and then sends us a screenshot of that written review to myrockfight@gmail.com, which is also where you want to send any other feedback you have about the show, is myrockfight@gmail.com. But yeah, if you sent a review in and you haven't gotten your stickers yet, send me another email because they all went out last week, which was very exciting. Thank you so much for everybody who left reviews. And if you want to follow the show on social media, we're on Instagram at rockfight.co. And we also have our trusty newsletter every Sunday called News from the Front. If you head over to rockfight.co, our little website there, click join the mailing list, and then sign up, and you'll get our newsletter. Just came out 3 hours ago. Before we get into everything else, though, guys, you know what? It's time for more with Thermore. And even without Justin here, I've got a few things I want to tell you. In fact, without Justin here, I want to tell you about this because I can kind of go back to my days in the ingredient brand world, because Thermore is the original ingredient brand who's been providing insulation solutions from Italy since 1972. And a couple of days ago, I got up early to go surfing where I live. There's typically kind of a marine layer at the beach this time of year, and it stays cooler and windy until midday, even though it's been pretty hot this summer. And then around midday, the sun burns those clouds off. So my house is only about 20 minutes away from the beach, but when I left to go to the beach, it was sunny at my place, and I only wore, like a t-shirt and some board shorts. When I got to the beach, it was windy and cool, and the marine layer was so thick that it was drizzling, which isn't a big deal. I went and got in the water and did my thing. But then afterwards, when I wanted to go get a coffee nearby where I was surfing, I was pretty cold from being in the water, and then not having on really the right kit kind of kept me cold, and I kind of second-guessed my, decision to go somewhere. The point is that even at this time of the year when much of the U.S. is dealing with high temperatures, versatility is always a consideration. And that's why you need to know about Thermore's newest and most versatile product, Thermore Freedom, which is a stretch insulation designed for high-output activities like running, biking, or skiing. But a garment with Thermore Freedom would have also been ideal as my summertime post-surf top as well on that day that I was at the beach. Freedom has incredible stretch capabilities. It's Blue Sign certified. It will hold up to repeat washings and come out perfect every time. And it's the latest from Thermore. So to all the brands that are out there listening, and I know that you are, if you're listening to The Rock Fight and you're one of these brands, now is the time to implement the versatility of Freedom into your line. Hit them up over at thermore.com. And remember to do more in the outdoors this summer with Thermore.
So, Colin, is this a form of active insulation?
Yeah, actually, it is a form of active insulation. It's Thermore's version of active insulation.
Great. No, that's it's one of the most, like you said, versatile fabrics that going today. And I think the fact that it helps you reconsider your life choices, I mean, that's some serious work by a fabric. To think therapy in fabric form is pretty cool. What a time to be alive.
I think that's more related to my, the brainwashing I had working for a textile brand of them all constantly thinking, how could this be better?
Right. So. Well, something like that, though, it's pretty impactful. Like you said, you can really start to contemplate life when you're comfortable in hot and cold conditions.
All right. Well, I wanted to open today with sort of my final take on trade shows from summer 2024. We've talked a lot about trade shows over the past month. I've done 2 instant reactions to the Grassroots Outdoor Alliance Connect show and to Outdoor Retailer. We covered the launch of Switchback, and then we've had 2 show directors on, Christina Henderson from Switchback, and then last week we had Sean Smith from OR that came on the show, and then we even had Wes Allen, who runs a retail shop in Cody, Wyoming, to come back on the show to talk about trade shows. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I do kind of want to give you my big picture thoughts on the event and kind of tie it all together as this topic sort of goes dormant for the rest of the summer. Because you may be sick of hearing about trade shows, but it is an omnipresent topic in the outdoor world. Like I've said many times on the show, we were talking about the value a show like OR had back in the late 2000s and through that decade. There was a constant debate between establishing value and ROI for attending a show, as well as the gathering of the tribe element that everyone seemed to value on some sort of level. And so, when people say they're kind of sick of talking about it, it's like, yeah, you can say that, but also I know you're kind of not, because it's this kind of ever-present topic in the outdoor space that anytime you get in industry circles, invariably you're going to, the conversation will drift into events and trade shows. And I don't want to get into the political or environmental piece of this. Like, trust me, if there was money to be made by attending OR and Moscow, let alone Salt Lake City, every brand would be Russia bound at this point. Like, it is frankly a certain level of BS that exists in terms of the people who say that they're not going to outdoor retailer because of the Bears Ears situation. If these brands who continue to operate stores and other parts of their business in certain places, there was money to be made, they would go. So the interesting thing to me, though, about the past few months is that it seems like we've really have finally struck a balance with the shows we have. And I'm saying that looking back at those times earlier in my career where we were questioning the value of these shows. Because you have the gathering and the consumer elements, where in years past, the big solution was to establish a trade show, but then there was a demand to create a consumer part of the event, which frankly I think is a terrible idea. It asks more of your attendees and has much lower upside than most people realize. I think something like Sea Otter, which does have a consumer and a trade element, is the exception, not the rule. But the part of that equation this year that frankly was solved, and this might surprise some of you to hear me say this, was the Outside Festival. Now, by all accounts, the Music Fest at Outside Festival was a good time. Bookended by outdoor elements. There was consumer interactions by outdoor brands and outdoor athletes doing outdoor athletes things before people got to go see these bands in Denver. Now, I've heard from some reliable sources that a lot of money was lost putting on this event, which doesn't surprise me. They took a really big swing. And my guess would be, and I don't know this for sure, but my guess would be that money was lost in the more industry-oriented parts of the festival. But I'd say it's a great start, right? Because for the broader outdoor experience, you get a few bands, have some booths, and the consumer portion is addressed. Now, how Outside the term decides to go forward, if they double down on the industry part of it, or if they just go all in more on the band part of it, the music part of it, we'll see in the coming years. But it sounded like it was, overall speaking, the people who attended had a good time, and it was well attended, at least for the people who wanted to go see the music. On the trade front, there has never been more options to see products and book orders than there is right now if you're a retailer who wants to see the products, or if you're a brand that wants to show the products. Before you even get to a national trade show, you have regional rep shows, you have in-store visits, you can do a Zoom call. It might be not as effective as touching the product, but you can see things. There's more ways to see things than there ever was before. And therefore, retailers have the option to spend more time in their stores and still be up to speed on what's happening with brands and products. So if you're going to put on a national show, and I have said this so many times in the last few weeks, but I don't mind saying it again, you have to provide real value. Why do you want people to show up? And it can't just be like, because everyone says they want to get together. That's a lot of money just to go hang out with some people that you kind of do business with, or you might know. So the 1-2 punch, though, this summer of GOA Connect and OR, again, at least for this summer, it really worked. You had specialty retailers that can head to a place like GOA Connect and meet with big outdoor brands that don't exhibit at other national shows anymore. And then those specialty retailers can head to Outdoor Retailer and shop for new products at a show that is now focused on up-and-coming brands. And then you do get to spend time with industry peers and check the social box of either or both events. I think the big box buyers, we don't even talked a lot about them over the last few months, but I think they're fine. As someone who used to be a national sales manager, you would drop everything you would leave everything at the drop of a hat to fly to Seattle to see REI or go to Pittsburgh to see Dick's. Right? It's not hard to get get sales folks and everything to one of these big brands. Every brand wants the financial upside of being in a Scheels or a Bass Pro. And they can then turn up at OR and shop the new cool stuff too. There's nothing keeping them from going there. But this is really the first time that I can look back and confidently say that we have what we need. The consumer box is checked. The specialty retail big brand box is checked. and the shopping new stuff box is checked. And again, as of today, right? This is the first time I feel like we can kind of sit here and say this, where all these sort of boxes are checked. And we'll have to see how winter OR goes. And we still have the wild card of Switchback happening next June. So the trade show churn will continue, which is frankly great for this show. But at least it feels like our industry is on the right track when it comes to shows and events. And then this week, I didn't even mention this yet, I'm heading to Denver with producer Dave. We're going to the Outdoor Market Alliance, our media event that is happening. Part of the, ever-growing push to make Colorado the go-to outdoor place. But it has a similar format to GOA Connect. But it's for media members. So, maybe this conversation won't be going dormant anytime soon. More on that in the coming weeks. Before I wrap up this bit, Dave, you were there with me at GOA and at OR. Like, what did you think? What was your takeaway? And you've been in the industry a long time as well. I mean, am I kind of on the right track with this, or did you see anything different?
You're absolutely on the right track. I think things are starting to break out and start to define themselves. I do think what's interesting in the mix is Switchback's East Coast kind of outpost. I think that's always been an issue in terms of the big swath of retailers getting out west to either Denver or Salt Lake. So I do think that adds something, especially when you do look at the kind of the delta between the retailers that can go to GOA and schedule those meetings versus ones that can't, but maybe see themselves really more in that very defined outdoor specialty niche that outdoor retailer is definitely pushing outward from. And so it's like there are still those that live in that spot, and maybe that's what Switchback is able to meet those needs from an East Coast perspective. So I wouldn't count it out. I mean, obviously June is just a crazy time, but that's where we are. It's right now. That's a bigger solve, quite frankly. And I'm not sure July solves that problem with just the way the summer goes and everything like that. But no, I think it's great to see everybody coalescing into kind of their natural state and the need that they can serve. And Colin, did you hear that Colorado has mountains? Like, I'm pretty sure that's what they're banking this whole center of the outdoor industry.
Is Justin Hausman feeding you jokes right now?
Exactly.
That sounds like a Hausman joke.
It was mountains.
I've heard that.
That's right.
That
There's
place,
mountains there, and so.
You were mostly spent a lot while you still your career is based in the creative world. Do you sort of miss the giant booths at like peak OR? I mean, there's a part of me that does.
Sure.
I mean, I think it's ridiculous, and I'm so glad it doesn't happen anymore. But it was fun on like day one when the show was at its zenith to kind of walk around and see the crazy shit people
Absolutely.
were doing.
I mean, look, it's another just really. What is it? A very visceral expression of the brand, right? It's three-dimensional. It's got all the new where the brand is going. It creates this kind of true. I mean, some of these were fortresses. So I think so.
Oh, yeah.
From the senses perspective, absolutely, and it really did. Almost. I mean, maybe Rome is the wrong analogy to it, but as the booth rise, the industry rise, and so you really got a sense of just this industry on the move, growing.
Who was the Julius Caesar of the 2010s outdoor industry?
Et tu, Colin, et tu. No doubt, and you could really see what brands were killing it by just the size of their booth, and also it made another opportunity for brands to misstep to really show how outside of the growing kind of contemporary brand movement was going on. It really did create a have and have-nots that I don't know if necessarily served our industry well, but it does seem like we're kind of moving back to more of the level playing field while in kind of purchasing mode that a trade show really serves its value as.
I don't think it served us well at all. I mean, because I think now that you see these more. I mean, Sean Smith, I think the best thing he said on the episode when he was on last week is that we have to serve the buyer. Just serve the buyer and everything else sort of takes care of itself. So the retailers coming in, like, make them your target and then all the other stuff. So, I think that all obviously got lost because they weren't writing orders. They didn't care. They were just showing up. And frankly, they were probably more interested in the smaller brands when the show was huge than being like, oh, did you see the Mountain Hardware booth? It was gigantic,
right. But you're right, that became...
Spectacle didn't really win out.
No, but that became... It did kind of occupy some of the oxygen in the conversation. You're absolutely right. That became...
Right.
Frankly, I am going to miss standing in line for 30 minutes to get a small cup of coffee in the Royal Robbins booth. right? Or
It was pretty good espresso,
but
good.
That line was crazy. Or think about who's making booth waffles these days, like where I can go and get my breakfast at a camp stove in somebody's booth.
Should that if Rock Fight doesn't work out for us, should we start Booth Waffles as a little pop up diner?
Yes, we should. In fact, let's get on that.
They come to your booth, like your diner booth, and make a waffle in front of you.
That is on a solo stove, right? So.
But you know what, though? But it's kind of like self-fulfilling prophecy when they start handing out the Bob Awards, right? The Best of Booth Awards, and putting the value on the booth. So the brands are like, fuck yeah, we're going to stick it to everybody else and create the biggest booth. And it's like, but wait, do you remember the retailers coming? Yeah, screw them. We got to make the coolest booth.
Spent $1 million on something that has to be taken down and thrown away.
All right, let's talk about a couple of headlines. Dave, I'm not sure if you saw a couple of things that I put in the outline this week before I put them in the outline, but a couple of tragic stories that we're going to start with.
Oh, you're bringing us down already. I saw the headline and I got excited. I thought it was a new bluegrass band.
Well, so the first of which, this is from Explorer's Web. And last week, it was reported that a Spanish tourist in South Africa was visiting a national park, and he, along with his fiancée and other tourists, came upon a herd of elephants. And despite being told not to do so, this man got out of the vehicle and approached the elephants to take some pictures. And then he was proceeded to be trampled to death by They chased him back to the car. He didn't make it. And then the herd all literally trampled him for 30 seconds. And then they just went back to grazing and hanging out where they were before. This is horrifying. I can't think of, Hausman and I have talked on the show a bunch about grizzly bear attacks and shark attacks. Never really thought I'd be talking about getting trampled by elephants. But is this the best Darwin Award that's ever been handed out? Maybe top 20, top 30, maybe. I'm sure maybe there's some other things that rank above this, but getting, on your own merit, not merit, on your own, whatever, misguided attempt at whatever you were doing, getting out of a car and approaching a group of wild elephants and being like, what's up, elephants? Please don't trample me, and then getting trampled.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack with this, Colin. I am speechless in one sense. A trampling of elephants. I did not have that on my bingo card, for sure. My snarky side immediately wants to know if he did get the photo release from the elephants. So that we can use that footage.
Did they develop the film?
Because that's amazing.
Did he get the shot?
What in the world? Yeah. And what possesses people to see an elephant? I mean, think of how large that group is. Your instinct is, let's get out of the steel car. Let's get out of the steel cage. What in the world? I mean, I feel bad for their families, of course, but boy, it's hard to not look at this and say, well, this is where this goes.
The thing that drove it home for me was, you read about the bear attacks or the other animal attacks that we talk about primarily in the sort of human-powered outdoor sports that we do, but they described it as, witnesses say there was nothing but the tattered blood-soaked clothing of the tourists and remnants of the tourist's body crushed into the earth. So he went from body to paste in, a relatively short amount of time, it sounds like. That's rough, man. That's a rough way to go.
It is. But it's just still, I'm just it's such an unforced error. It's like walking into the middle of the street, just purposely not looking any other direction. It's the bear comes upon you, I'm guessing. I guess there are folks that do seek out the bear, but I've got to say that's probably not the case. This is more like a buffalo goring, right? Where, hey, look at the fuzzy cow. Right.
These are the people.
That's right.
Yeah, let's go pet the fuzzy cow in Yosemite.
Right. Wow. Yeah. No one does this with a shark, I don't think.
Or do they? Do they see the shark? Are they on a paddleboard and let me touch the shark? Probably. Maybe this is just a human thing. I don't know. For me,
here, sharky.
It unlocked a new fear for me. I'm I never thought about getting crushed by elephants.
Let me add that to my little list here. Okay, shark attack, bear, elephant trampling. Well, so what's the takeaway here, Colin?
Stay in the car, I guess. I just enjoy the majesty of nature from a protected area. What if they had been lions? Would he have done the same thing? Is this just this guy's bag? He's it's fine. Is he like those crazy people you see training grizzly bears who eventually get eaten? I don't know.
You know what? In one sense, yes, but the other, no. This is just a pure outright disrespect for the elephant. Yeah, you saw Dumbo, saw elephant, saw something that couldn't
Right.
possibly be harmful.
Could not hurt
That's
me.
right. And basically, elephant says, "Hold my beer."
Well, and the tragedy continues because last week also it was reported that a 50-year-old Texas man was found dead in the Grand Canyon, and that which marked the third death in the canyon this summer. And the cause of none of those three deaths have been confirmed, but it's presumed these deaths are related to the extreme heat that's going on and the ongoing Southwest heat wave. And then earlier this month, a motorcyclist died in Death Valley where the temperature hit 128 degrees, and at Lake Mead National Recreation Area, all these, again, Southwest locations. 2 others have died this summer as a result of the heat. I mean, kind of like the elephant story. I don't want to be insensitive, and sincere condolences to the families, like you said, of these folks, but what are you doing planning trips to these places this time of year? I mean, I get it, it's summer vacation. It's the time of year when people take time off. But it's not like we don't know what the weather is going to be in the Grand Canyon in July. They're talking a place. If you go to the Grand Canyon, right as you're at the top of, like, I think it's either it's Bright Angel or Kaibab Trail or whatever, there's an illustrated, like a hand-drawn sign of a person on all fours graphically vomiting to make sure you understand where you're headed is dangerous because of
I think
the
you're
heat.
referring to Hangover Pass, Colin. And I think people might misinterpret that sign. I think it's time for a sign with a headstone on it. Or something.
Yeah. Oh, they're like, oh, I'll only throw up because it's hot. Is that what you're taking away from that?
That's exactly what I'm taking away from it. So I bring some hair of the dog, right? A little vodka in the backpack.
But is this also not an unforced error, like you were just saying? Because it's like you don't have to go to the place where you know it's going to be 120 degrees at that time of year.
It is, but it's also, maybe this is. To me, it's a little more understandable than getting out of the car in front of a herd of elephants.
That's true.
Only because, as you know, heat stroke is insidious. You don't know it's hit you when it's already hit you. I'm not sure most people can even unpack in their brains what 120 degrees really is.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those cases, and again, like you said, there is a heat wave that is totally, enveloped the Southwest. This is not the heat wave. This is just
summer.
Weekday in July
right.
on the Grand Canyon. And that trail, I mean, it gets people every year, no doubt. But I think that plays into it, and they're just not able to fully grasp what that is. Also, too, once you get on that trail, I mean, it's just no joke. I mean, it looks, at the top, it looks like, oh, it's wide, it's a bit I can go, and everybody's going up and down. I see them kind of move. The trailhead is active, and, you get half a mile down, and you realize that this is...
You got to go back up.
And it gets more, it's just going. It just goes. You have so long to go.
Is the takeaway from both these stories, like maybe you came up with a great a new franchise for us, the unforced error? Like, is this the unforced error of the outdoors? Because it does seem like there are a lot of these avalanche tragedies. There's a lot of tragedy that happens in the outdoors, which part of the reason we go outside is because of the risk and kind of doing things in the face of nature and all that kind of stuff. But there's plenty of times people go where we all go, man, why'd you do that?
Right, and it's a different form of Darwin, where Darwin is just the inevitable outcome of one's behavior, like that. That's going to happen. Unforced errors, you just kind of made some bad choices that are going to result in this, and aren't most accidents in the outdoor an unforced error? I mean.
There's some nuance there. Like, I wouldn't say Aaron Ralston was unforced. I mean, he didn't leave a note, but, like, he definitely didn't expect to get pinned by a rock in a canyon, right? I think that's something you couldn't have predicted. Maybe it's something that's, like, it's unforced if you could have predicted this was going to happen.
That's right. Or even just didn't take the same precaution to ensure that it didn't happen.
Right. Like getting out of the car.
Right, where the Darwin takes the action with complete obliviousness that it's going to have a dire consequence. Yeah. I mean, there's a big difference there.
Well, like we said, I mean, if you know any of these folks, we're sorry. It's tragic. People, I'm sure, in the Southwest are just trying to do things that they love to do outside. At the same time, like, man, maybe November would have been a better month to try some of these adventures.
Look, the canyon, the layered strata, the red rock, it gets you. And when you get there, it motivates people to want to see more of it.
You want to see it.
To get down. That's right. Like I said, there's an insidiousness to it. But it is a beautiful part of the country. And I can see why that would take a hold of people. That might be nature's plan to just make sure it never gets too populated.
Right.
But
this is like Final Destination. Like death is just choosing the people.
Yes, there you go.
Well, our last story, also from Explorers Web, was reported last week that the world's highest unclimbed peak, I believe it's pronounced Machu Picchu in Pakistan, clocks in at 7,453 meters or 24,400 feet. And it was climbed last week, or summited last week by a group of Czech climbers. And this is the third time in 4 years that a Czech team has gone for this particular summit. Obviously the first time it's been reached. I'm really only bringing this up because when I was looking at the photos on Explorers Web, and I'll link to that in the show notes if you want to see it, there were the only people in the photos were from this team because no one else is on the mountain, which is kind of a throwback to all the conversations we had this past spring where Justin and I talked about all the issues on Everest and just the lineup of people there. I mean, this was a throwback to when alpinism was at its zenith. And when climbing mountains was the most badass thing you could do. I was inspired looking at these photos and what these people accomplished. And look, if you want to pay your $100,000 to go stand in line on Mount Everest or K2 or one of the other bigger peaks that are now completely overcrowded, cool, like go for it. But seeing these photos from Machu Picchu reminded me of why I found inspiration in those big mountain accomplishments from like the 1990s and before times. It also made me think there must be other mountains in the world where there are no other climbers and the adventure just seems to be, I don't know, a bit more real. I mean, I don't know, Dave, you're from my generation too. You grew up in the into thin air era. I mean, did you feel the same way, or does it all seem kind of like folly to you?
Well, I never was once inspired to go climb a 20,000 plus foot mountain because of into thin air, for sure. In fact, the opposite happened. I retreated to desert and flatlands. Right.
It is crazy that a lot of us took inspiration from into thin air. I'm like, wow, did you hear that horribly tragic story on the mountain?
Right.
Fuck yeah, I want to go do that.
That's right. No. I'm going to paddle. No, look, you're right though. It does. These are images that are getting rarer and rarer. And, I do think that it's in the human condition to explore and to achieve this. So as opportunities for this become scarcer, I think people will actually take greater risks to do it. I think that's just the inevitable phase of that, and whether it be going up or going down or going into the ocean, like it's just, even with the submarine tragedy, in a form that is a greater risk to be a place where humans haven't gone yet, that type of idea. So I think we're going to see more of it. It is, you're right, it was interesting when you put it in the light of seeing those photos. I just figure now you do your with your Everest trip, part of your fees is a subscription to Adobe. So afterwards you can Photoshop out your everybody else. So
right.
It looks so.
That's a feature on iOS now, isn't it?
Everest,
where you just like
that's right, distiller, Everest distiller, and all of a sudden you and your crew can look like you're up there by yourself. These guys obviously didn't have a subscription to Adobe, and so therefore they had to do it themselves.
That's why they had to do it this way.
We call that in camera, Colin. I'm going to get all my effects in camera, and that's what they were doing. No,
but you are right. I mean, like, even if you weren't inspired to maybe go climb the big mountains, it was jarring to me when I clicked on this link and I'm looking at the photos. It reminded me of the expeditions, which, like a successful expedition, we're like, oh, that's so cool. They had that adventurous spirit. They set a goal and they achieved it. I'm sure it was hard physically and mentally. And it just kind of reminded me of that, versus whether the article is about the overcrowding on Everest or the article is about just someone being on Everest. Every one of them has the long line and the videos of like, well, we're just standing around waiting for our turn now. It's like, oh, that's what you want, is to spend more time in the most dangerous environment on the planet. That sounds great.
Right.
All right, man. Well, we can wrap it up there. I'm going to see you tomorrow in Denver. Excited. Go check out OMA Media Summit.
That's right. Going to talk shop.
The Rock Fight is a production of Rock Fight LLC. Our producer today was the voice you just heard, David Karstad. Art direction provided by Sarah Gensert. I'm Colin True. Thanks for listening. And he's here to take us out like he always is. It's Krista Makes. He's going to sing the Rock Fight fight song. We'll see you next time, Rock Fighters. Rock Fight!